take what we get.
What we can, right?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of celebrating little wins, there are a few stories that would make you chuckle as to what's worthy of celebration. But today, let's start with this first one from the Guardian newspaper. Tension in Southeast as nation marks independence. There was a previous warning by the indigenous people of Biafra asking for a total shutdown. There was a planned shutdown that was instructed by the secessionist group, but that wasn't heeded as marketplaces were agog with activity. But what are your thoughts regarding this and your response to the early effort?
Well, I guess today we'll see really how seriously um, the citizenry of the people, the rest, the indigens of the area of the southeast will take this. To be honest, if you look at the previous instructions that they've given, they've all generally been adhered. I think that there's no business on Mondays generally, and that's generally something
It's a few days a week actually.
yeah. Oh, it's Monday, right? Monday, I'm well aware of, and people stick to it. It's if you ever want any sort of indication as to who is in charge in any particular area, right? It is what happens in reality on the streets, like who gives the instructions and what instructions are followed through. So now the governor of Ebonyi, for instance, has responded to this and saying that look, responded to IPOB's demands that first and foremost that no Nigerian flag should be flown anywhere, should be seen flown, anywhere within the region at all, and nobody should be seen on the streets, celebrating anything like they do. They'd have themselves to blame. The governor of Ebonyi State is saying that look, today is the day that they should fly at its highest. But I'm sure he's saying this, behind the very behind the comforts of his and clearly the what is way and well out of reach of and he's afforded kind of comforts and security that the common man isn't, right? So it's one thing to say that, but the other is what's the reality on the ground. If people feel unsafe, people will not come out. People will not generally inhibits normal business. From instructions on, I mean, the list goes on. From instructions on, not taking examinations, not coming out for business. If one of the key responsibilities of any nation state is securing, not one securing, the perimeters of the nation, actually define the borders, and then securing the life and property of the people. If that is compromised to the point where groups that are not constituted in law can give instructions and if people follow it, then do we even really need to debate, really and truly who is closer and who is in quotes sort of in charge in those areas, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. I mean, the story also talks about attacks on prominent political people. So the convoy of Chris Azubo, a lawmaker representing Newi North, was also attacked and his driver was killed. But again, that incident was singled out in the story, but it's just one of so many incidents throughout the entire region. He gets mentioned because he's a politician, right?
Yeah.
This happens every day to
He's an important
people.
person.
Yeah, he's an important person. There you go. The rest are not, unfortunately, and this is Nigeria at 61. Happy birthday, guys.
Happy birthday, thank you. Waji, let's go to this next story now. Thank you, Tunde, for that. A really good analysis there. From New Telegraph, Nigeria 61, delving into the president's speech. I mean, I think he's done speaking. You saw a clip of that. Buhari accused an unnamed lawmaker of sponsoring secessionists. He made this allegation, or rather accusation, in his speech of sponsoring. Accused the lawmaker who wasn't named of sponsoring Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho, who are both arrowheads to the agitations from these two different regions. But what are your thoughts regarding his speech entirely and other areas that he covers in terms of his even addressing seeds of violence planted in people's minds when he couched it in a statement where he said, oh, those that will be dealt with would include those who are sponsoring this violence and then those who are instigating violence with their words or rhetoric.
Okay. All right. So I haven't had the pleasure of reading or watching the entire speech in its entirety, so I can't speak to all the elements that were or were not covered. But just basing off of this particular article from the New Telegraph, where he's addressing and making the claims that there are individuals within the National Assembly that are contributing towards individuals who have the secessionist agenda, is what I find quite interesting. And then when you go into the article and pick out other elements about, the things that are happening, he's blaming social media, and going after certain elements. And I find it interesting that on a day we commemorate independence from British colonial rule, we're pointing fingers without addressing the real concerns. Leadership is about body language, Valentine. Leadership is about postulation. It's about letting people know that you, as the individual who is at the helm of affairs, are going to do and is going to do everything to guarantee, like Tunde indicated, your safety, your comfort, and providing an enabling environment for you to prosper. Once again, I've not seen the transcript of the speech, but I would love to know if he addressed areas around. I mean, he talked about security, obviously, but I'd love to see if there were areas addressed around healthcare, if there were areas addressed around education, if there were areas addressed around how you're going to promote the economy and commerce to make sure that people have some kind of sustainability with their day-to-day lives. And as a president, that should be your focus. And the mere fact that even if this is just a paragraph within that speech, you're pointing towards the accusation that a fellow lawmaker is responsible for a secessionist agenda is laughable. Where is your Ministry of Justice in this particular conversation? Shouldn't they be the ones investigating and trying to figure that out and bring that person to book? Why is it something that a president needs to specifically mention without mentioning this person's name? It's ridiculous. So my point is, it's Independence Day. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. We are not getting the leadership that we believe that we deserve, or maybe we are. And that's the question we all have to answer.
But is there an area in this conversation? Is there an area with what has been going on that he didn't touch that you'd have liked him to mention or speak about?
Like I said, I haven't read the entirety of the speech, so I don't want to make conclusions. I'm only basing what I'm seeing off of this article in the New Telegraph. But what I'm seeing in the New Telegraph is not addressing the areas that now speak to majority of the population. I mean, Valentine, you have to understand and remember that the majority of Nigerians are under the age of 30. And when I say majority, I'm talking about at least 70% of this nation. So you're looking at over 100 million people. And there is a gigantic gap between the presidency, the architecture of the presidency, and who Nigerians are. So when you're beginning to make these speeches and you're talking about lawmakers now having a secessionist agenda, how does that actually address the concerns of the average Nigerian? What is their business with such a statement? Are you speaking towards how you're going to continue to use technology to empower Nigerians to be able to now compete favorably with the rest of the world? Are you going to talk about how you're going to join a larger global community to ensure that people have ease of movement to be more competitive with the things that they do? You're talking about things internal that are of a security concern that, frankly speaking, your security state agencies should be handling. So to answer your point, if I'm basing the New Telegraph off of anything, I am not getting the kind of statements and the kind of epilogues that we should be getting from a president on Independence Day.
I don't like the use of that word, epilogues. Interesting, thank you so much. Dami from Ikeja says, our leaders do not understand the difference between politicking and governance. If the president is sure of his allegations, they should stop talking and start charging people to court. And George from Okokomaiko says, why is Waji calling his speech a pleasure? It was painful to listen to. He said, P.S.
Did I call it a pleasure? I haven't.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it.
Said Buhari did not lift the Twitter ban. He gave conditions that won't be met. Austin from Satellite Town says they've entered the southeast. If you like, believe it. If you you don't like, leave it. Didn't one prominent Nigerian say this on national TV that after they've. Okay, this is insightful. Thank you, Austin, though, for your thoughts. Please send messages also through YouTube. Type Smooth FM Lagos in the search box to find us and subscribe. Tunde, let's get to the story from this day's newspaper on insecurity still. And, in line with technology, I find it interesting the kind of thing we celebrate here. But it says as part of efforts to combat insecurity, the Ekiti State government has said it plans, not like it has done it, or they've done it, it plans to acquire a sophisticated drone to complement the one it currently has. Similarly, the government, Ogun State government that is, says it is considering deploying closed-circuit television in some critical areas of the state. By these announcements made by a state government, I would expect the kind of sophisticated drone technology that the United States uses. Okay, maybe I shouldn't laugh. It's not comical.
Before
What
Tunde
is it?
jumps in,
What-
what is a sophisticated drone? Maybe
Yeah.
Tunde.
I know, no, yeah. Like we need to understand the class.
Tunde,
Do you have
Tunde's,
any
Tunde's
insights?
smarter than I am,
Yeah.
so please.
It's not the DJI
no,
models that
interesting.
children play with. Yes.
Interesting.
I wonder where to start from.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, there's one thing I was going to say now. Okay, yeah, it's to there's something you said that I just wanted to pick up on it. You know, when we sit back and we sort of say, is this what we deserve? And Waji alluded to it. Is this what we deserve? And sometimes we look at, oh, are these the headlines? Are these things the governors are? Sometimes it sounds very unpopular, but maybe it's also because we're a poor nation. I mean, yeah, people are rich in resources, rich in everything, but the truth is, it's
Very poor.
Yeah, that's the truth. Maybe this is where we are, and we just need to, accept that this is where we are. Just look at the quality of the headlines across, the national dailies, and you'd wonder. So maybe the sooner we accept where we are, the better. Now, the governor has come to announce, the procurement of sophisticated drones to combat bandits, right? Insecurity. By bandits, he's trying to play with the line of terrorism, right? Because specifically they've been told not to mention or to prescribe them as terrorists, right? But in the story, and specifically, they want he mentions forested areas, places where bandits, aka terrorists, hang out. When you mention drones of this nature, what immediately to deal with people like that, you typically think of, weapons grade drones.
Yes.
Kind of drones you hear the United States or the UK say, oh, they used to take out a terrorist somewhere in the Levant or something, right? It's several, kilometers in the sky. You can't see it. It launches its attack, nobody knows and sees it, right?
And picks up body heat signals.
Exactly, it's full, first class, top of the line stuff. Let's not kid ourselves, we're not getting anywhere near that kind of technology.
Why?
I mean, we're not even allowed in the same room.
Why,
To be honest,
why
we're
not?
just because as it goes, I mean, back to the I mean, so there's a G what? There's a G7, G8. Are we in it?
We're not in the G20.
Yeah. So, I think that answers the question.
But
right?
I mean, here's the description. Security advisor actually said that the new drone will be acquired in view of the urgency and necessity of things. It says, first of all, they will need to license persons to fly it, right? But he described it. It says what we need is a drone that will show people carrying arms, not the ones that are used by farmers and cultivating
so
farms.
now that's the next place that I was going to. That really and truly, it's one of those. So to me, it's a bit like one of those things where we have a tendency to inflate things because for various reasons. They inflate things. Really, what they need is surveillance. Essentially, what they're saying is that we need surveillance. If you need surveillance, it is much better to start with CCTV and have a CCTV network in certain areas of the state if you can't cover everywhere to begin with, right? And then the drones are complementary. You don't even have CCTV. You haven't taken that really as a focus, but you want to operate drones, which are a lot more complicated to operate, more expensive to obtain. Start with CCTV. I think that will really help and should be the direction. I mean, if you look at some of the proposals from some of the other states, Ogun State said, "Oh, we consider this." Obviously, when I read the story, what it meant to me is that someone is there's a smart businessman going around to these states peddling this stuff, trying to sell it to them. Right? Some have bought, some aren't. Some have gone down the route of, okay, we'll deploy CCTV instead because one, it has multiple uses, and it's a lot more cost effective for us where we are now, So again, to me, I think it's just one of those where they've talked it up more than really what it is. These drones are not going to be any different from the drones that used to take aerial shots at Owambes.
All right, 7:46 time. Let's go to these days story. Waji, Buhari approves new salaries, retirement age for teachers extended from 35 years to 40. They said, according to the Minister of State for Education, Chukwemeka Wajuba, he said that the teachers will begin to enjoy this towards the end of the year. that by then they will be able to have worked out the modalities for effective implementation and it be ready to present to the president to sign and approve.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand what that means, because when you go into the article, there's one key paragraph that is actually quite interesting, where it talks about all these modalities and the infrastructure required. But there's an element that says all that is required is for other actors down the line, like state governors and the National Assembly and others, to key into this initiative and ensure that the implementation is seamless. So, what exactly has been approved if it's still going to be subject to individuals in the National Assembly and also the state governors? I do not understand that at all. And I think that's where we get things very complicated in Nigeria. Because where is the actual budget going to come from for this increase in salaries? Where is the budget going to come from that will accommodate you having longevity with your retirement age? And this goes back to the proponent point about where the state responsibility and national oversight conflate each other. Why is the president approving an increase in salary? Shouldn't that be a state by state decision? Shouldn't that be a state decision based on the state budgets, based on the IGR of that particular state? Why is the presidency getting involved in the enhancement of teacher salaries? What normally should be done in a republic is the president sets the mood that his vision is to see teachers get a more rewarding salary. His vision is to encourage our teachers to now have a system where they are competitive, etc., etc. Then the president will now sit down with the governors forum and say, hey guys, what can you do per state? Is it possible? Do you need our help? Are there ways we can intervene? But to now set this tone of we have approved, what have you approved? And you see, going back to Tunde's points, like, we just say things because we can. Nobody's sitting down in the point that these things are done saying, man, listen, this doesn't actually make any sense. Like, let's actually think through this thing before we say it. We're literally just coming up with statements because we can. There's no accountability. Nobody's fact checking, and nobody's calling you to order. Because if you actually think about what is being said, the mechanics of it, even within their own statements, it's clear that they actually know that this doesn't actually make any sense, because they're saying that all that is required is for actors down the line to now implement.
That's a vague statement.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Some people describe it as putting the cart before the horse, but it's been seen in most thoughts, expressed.
It's how
recently.
we arrive at this situation where the federal government or the presidency makes a statement and years down the line there's no implementation.
Nothing.
No nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen, because where's the engine for this to happen?
Perhaps from here they will propose it to the state governors to see if it's something. Because I say this tongue in cheek because we are still not anywhere near implementing 30,000 naira minimum wage across board. So it really boggles my
But you
mind.
see,
how
it goes.
increase
This is the nonsensical attitude that we do not like to tackle. Very uncomfortable conversations we don't want to have. In a republic, people move around to certain states because of employment. All right. If a certain state happens to create better opportunities because of minimum wage, you now move to that state. You migrate to that state. To make it a federal mandate makes no sense, because how can you compare certain states, especially in places like the Northeast or the North Central, to maybe some South states? I'm not even going to go to the Southwest and actually try to make a comparative argument. It doesn't make any sense. Same thing with this aspect about increasing teacher salaries. How can you make that determination with regards to situations in certain states against other states? This is something, like I say, from a national perspective, you want to promote Nigerian teachers having a better salary.
Yes.
And then you work it out with each individual state government. What can you do? Does your state budget allow for this to happen? If it doesn't, are there some subsidies or some kind of financial injection we can put forward to help you? Those are the conversations.
But in essence, we're not ready yet.
It's not.
for that.
No, but it's not even about being ready. That's not. It's the attitude behind the thinking that the federal government is this behemoth that controls every single thing, when you actually don't have to. So it's just making yourself more relevant than you have to be, which is just something I don't understand.
I think I'll lean on that last statement that you just made, making just indication of relevance or trying to push relevance. Now, a few messages here on WhatsApp. Cisco Delgado says, sophisticated drone simply means drones that are equipped with not only cameras but the ones with ammunition. And he adds, the drones will be a huge help in terms of bush surveillance, that if it sees the light of day. Henry from Lagos Island says, if the president's independent in the president's Independence Day speech, he didn't criticize his government, which has previously or obviously performed abysmally.
There you go.
How can he say no government has achieved what his government has? It's sad and laughable. Mecca from Amo says maybe he's talking about unity schools in terms of increase. Shegun says when enlightened and educated governors make such statements about drones, then we know our leadership issues are much deeper than we thought. Gloria says it feels like these leaders didn't have a great childhood, so simple technology excites them enough to make a headline. Well, that was in the details, they say. Joseph May says, Happy Independence, Nigeria. Nigeria shall surely overcome all her challenges, though it would take a holistic sacrifice from every citizen. The comment from the
So
president
my
isn't
grandfather said.
the comment from the president isn't the kind we need as much or as we march forward. No healing content, no assurance of anything or action against terrorism, banditry, inflation, hunger, etc. But talking about
Okay,
the
so
stock,
none of those were addressed for
yeah.
those who have read it.
Mm.
Okay.
He said, may God heal our land. Thank you, Joseph. Yemi says from Marina, contrary to some opinion, I think the speech was robust, in my opinion. Please do listen before we make conjectures or conjectures. Thank you. Osita, thank you for your message. Johnny Salmon says, applying drones as security solution was long overdue. If these governors go for it now, it should be encouraged, not ridiculed. It hasn't been implemented, by the way. But it ends with nothing wrong either with the solution provider stepping forward or stepping up. Today, let's look at this story together from the Guardian newspaper. Federal government plans to enforce vaccine passport in December. Well, they denied the plan. They said the denial was in response to claims that persons that have not been vaccinated would not have access to air travel, a measure that's fast gaining traction in other parts of the world, Europe, America, and some parts of Africa. I mean, to me, it seems like that the suspicion is coming on the heels of the perceived enforcement by the federal government. There was, I mean, first of all, there was an indication last week that civil servants may have to comply to that directive. But what are your thoughts regarding this?
Okay, so that one is, that I concede. The story itself and the claim in the story, I mean, is indicative of the type of confusion, to be honest, that is not just present here, but literally the world over in terms of, what direction countries and nation states would take as regarding vaccination and air travel. So the Guardian is indicating and is leaning on saying that in the West, if you're not vaccinated, by the West, we mean the UK, the US, that you're not allowed to fly. That's not true. That's not the case, right? What they're doing is that they're all the song and dance that you have to do today, the multiple tests, the isolating for 7 days or 14 days. They are streamlining that or stripping it away for people who are double vaxxed.
Oh, okay.
Right, but they can't prevent people who want to travel and meet all other requirements to travel. It's just that you have to go through a more stringent process. So I think that's the first thing to clarify. I don't think we would ever arrive at a place where they make it mandatory that you must take vaccines to fly. The other point as to the government here mandating, first thing the thought that came to mind is how many vaccines have even been administered.
Exactly.
So you also kind of
We're
need to
below
be
par.
fair.
We haven't even beat the World Health
Jonathan.
Organization target.
We're nowhere near it,
Yeah.
right? We've not even testing. We're not anywhere near the required levels. Not to talk of now the actual vaccinations. We still rely very often on the goodwill. When we're not alone here, to be fair. I mean, so as a developing nation, I mean, we're not the only ones in this bucket. We don't produce our own, so we have to wait on the goodwill of others. We need to wait on global supply chains or when people donate to us, right? So, but the truth is, you need to think about how many people have indeed been vaccinated before you can come up with things like this. Which explains the long lulls. There are periods where okay, the vaccine has finished, or we're all waiting as a country to get new ones in. But that's separate from the government saying, look, I've made vaccines available to all civil servants, and you haven't taken, and that we've seen the world over, right? So I think France and the UK, I'm not sure about the UK, I know France definitely either suspended, if not laid off or terminated health workers who didn't meet a specific deadline to have the vaccination. So governments and employers can do similar things, or at least attempt to do similar things, right? So that one is different, and I don't think that would be transferred over to air travel. There's no region that I know that has made it mandatory. Definitely not the EU, that you must be vaccinated before you can travel. It's just that you go through the entire song and dance.
Thank you so much. I saw somewhere the statistics. So, I mean, first, we didn't meet the World Health Organization targets. Right now, the vaccination is around 1.8% or 27% or something like around that. But Waji, let's please take a look at this story. First of all, there was there's an ongoing investigation from on the floor of the House of Representatives ordering that into they look into the utilization of monies released to fund the 2021 appropriation bill. It followed the allegations of diversion of funds by ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government. Initially, I mean, previously we've heard about these ministries, departments, and agencies not remitting funds or revenue to the Treasury single accounts. Is this different from that, or is it still?
No, I mean, it's all the same thing, and it's about how do we just hold ourselves to accountability. And I think that the reps that are leading this, I think Ndudi Illuminated is among the individuals, and I encourage it. And I think that's part of the governance structure that we need to implement that actually checks these things to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So whether it comes out that indeed the money was maybe delayed or whatever the case may be, but I think it's important to keep people on their toes so you eradicate all sorts of immunity that people have, impunity, sorry, that people have when they believe that they can just do what they want. So I think this is a very robust process that we need to continue to implement to make sure we check these individuals who sit on these committees and who are allocated billions of naira to do certain things, that indeed those monies go towards what they've been allocated to do.
Thank you so much for that brief analysis, but poignant, actually, poignant. Damilare from Sparkling Estate says, I laughed when your analysts took on the government about the teacher salary news because I knew it's rubbish journalism that's the issue here. True. So you just concluded reading about the vaccine. I should I tell you more? People just sit on social media, put gist together and call it journalism. They are worse than SARS. It's a joke. Dele from Adele says drones can build massive and huge infrastructures in Nigeria, educate Nigerians and the Nigerian youth on development, then crime is gone. It's as easy as that. Osita Chibike says it's very wrong to make COVID-19 vaccination mandatory. Remember that during the lockdown, nobody made palliatives compulsory. Tony Salman says, rather than rant about the quality of governance and its actors, how about stepping out? Since we believe we deserve better. Punch newspaper has this report. The last story for the day today. IGP returns policemen withdrawn by predecessor to politicians. Recall that they were withdrawn sometime in November of 2020. Now they are being called back. Your thoughts?
Let's be honest now, with the state and with the state of insecurity in the nation. You know, in one of the earlier stories, I think in story one, we alluded to the fact that there's some important, people in the nation, and then maybe the rest of us. So anyone who's read Animal Farm kind of, understands what it is I mean. Everyone's equal.
Your alphas, your betas.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's equal, but some are a bit more equal than others.
Yeah.
So while we all have to deal with insecurity, some people get special, privileges. And I remember when this, directive came out. It's one of those things. It happens in a cycle, and it almost seems like it's one of those things that you do just to keep us, sort of happy. So when they were withdrawn, the truth is, it was more like a drawdown, not a withdrawal, because I still saw instances where policemen were guarding private individuals. Let's even say politicians would be politicians and do what they do, and you can argue that maybe some of them, need that kind of security, but they never really were prescribed. The payment may be reduced, and there was a public shock, maybe taking them from 60 prominent Nigerians. We don't know if they were returned the next day. In any case, it's been confirmed now that that they've pretty much returned to their posts. They're the important people in the country now. The rest of us just have to get by. So
but as we approach election year, I mean, I think it's expected, yes. Because they have to beef up security around these important
definitely,
people.
definitely. The most striking thing to me is not just a story, but I can't think of this without thinking of it in the context of our independence. And this is the story, and these are still the stories we talk about at 61 years of age.
Wow, we're old.
We're not old.
Well, no.
Not in the life, not in the life cycle of a nation, but you don't. There are two ways to learn. You can observe and look at other people, or you can experience it yourself. Experiencing things yourself very often, especially when sometimes can be more painful than observing the others. So yes, we're a young nation, but there are certain things that we can look towards those who've gone before us. Fixing the ratio, it's one of the things we speak about the most, the ratio of police force to the population. they're global international standards. We're nowhere near that, right? It speaks to so many things, yeah. So, I mean, that one is we'll run out of time, talking about it.
I think the instructive statement I'll glean from our conversation this morning is we are not learning from experience. We're experiencing and learning in a hard way and feeling the pain.
Yeah, and we just simply haven't planned. We failed as a nation. The truth is, we failed to plan. You hear people talk about, yesteryears about how great the nation was.
When?
In the, but that. Let's even live with the fallacy
Okay.
of in the good old days. In itself is a fallacy.
Right.
But let's even assume there was a time when things sort of worked better. Where Nigeria is now is a case of having failed to plan going to the future. Lagos State, for instance, is a state. I mean, as a reporter I read, is a state built for the infrastructure was built for 5 million people. Where 20 to 20 official numbers 20 million, but probably higher than that. Right? We just have failed to plan into the future. The road networks, 3rd million. We're talking about 3rd million bridge was built in the 70s, and we're talking about traffic jams. Failed to build into the future. We talk about healthcare. And we only have a handful of teaching hospitals. We still talk about LUTs, talk about ICU, but don't fail to build into the future. It's everywhere, really and truly. Insecurity. We say this thing like suddenly insecurity fell on us. No, it didn't fall on us.
It's been coming.
Right? It's been coming. We just haven't taken. As someone said, that's the solution is more complex than that. But when you fail to engage your population, you fail to educate them, you fail to give them minimum standards of human decency, right? These things will happen. So it's been coming. It didn't just suddenly fall on us. Didn't just suddenly have a shortage in the police force. But there's so many systemic and structural issues. So many funds that should be go towards these things get diverted and get stolen. We run a system that is devoid of merit. All sorts of things. But happy birthday, guys.
Thank you.
Happy
When you're
birthday.
speaking, Waji, it just reminded me of the Magna Carta and how it was drawn and conversations around it. And it's fundamental things, like you said,
It's
human decency.
Magna Carta.
And the
is a
Magna
thousand-
Carta is so old now.
It's a 1,000-year
Yeah.
document.
Yeah.
1,000-year document.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Waji Atunde. We've gone over time for an Independence Day edition of Freshly Pressed 981. Join us in 6 minutes. Let's come back for Lagos Talks 981.
Union Bank.